Hello and welcome to Run Talk with Dom.
Hello.
And me, Ollie, co-founders of Run Riot. This podcast features conversations with runners talking about what running is release means for them.
Each episode contains frank discussions about personal endeavours, mental well-being, physical challenges. Basically loads of good content related to running.
I'm delighted to say that Dom and I are joined today by Rhys King, otherwise known as the Heavy Mental Runner and previously known as the Heavy Mental Podcaster. So yes, I'm slightly daunted. We have a professional podcaster with us today. Hello, Rhys.
Pleased. Hi both. Pleased to call me a professional podcaster. It was a mere, I don't know how many episodes we did in the end, but yeah, that puts the pressure back on me. So yeah, don't expect too much.
That was totally my intent. Well, welcome anyway, Rhys. People can probably tell from your accent, but where are you talking to us from today?
I'm based in South Wales, in the Swansea Valley. You've got a mix of everything. You've got the seaside, you can run by the sea. You've got trails in the Brecon Beacons. You know, I feel really blessed with the amount of nature that's all around us, really. And I think, but when you grow up somewhere, you kind of take it for granted a bit, don't you? But sure. Yeah, I am grateful that I can just step out the door and get up the mountain within 5-10 minutes.
We talked obviously ahead of this interview, and I think I get the impression we're probably going to delve into a few different topics here. You know, mental health and well-being very much our kind of comfort zone when we're talking about Run Riot. ADHD, your current running challenge, which I really want to focus on a little bit later, and why you're doing it, and no doubt lots more. But let's start where we kind of first got introduced to you, Dom, myself at Run Riot, is that we spotted your pretty popular but now repurposed Instagram page, Heavy Mental Podcast. And before we get into that kind of running side of things, let's start there. What was that all about? What was the reason for that ever coming about?
Yeah, sure. So back in, I want to say it was 2019, my wife and I used to have these sort of informal, silly conversations in bed with a coffee on a weekend morning before we had our son and we had time on our hands. The conversations would range anywhere from, you know, memes we'd seen in the week to mental health, our plans for the future. But I think thematically, most of the conversation seemed to focus around mental health, personal growth. We've both struggled with our mental health in the past and now to a degree in terms of managing it. I'd always struggled with anxiety in particular, but also eating disorders and recently diagnosed with ADHD. So I affectionately refer to myself as mental because there's quite a lot going on in there. But my wife has struggled with depression in the past. So I think that it was just, we wanted to contribute in our own unique way to that ongoing conversation that was being had online surrounding destigmatizing the open discussion of mental health. And we kind of did it in our own silly way in which we would have a theme for a particular episode and we would discuss how that related to mental health. So it could have been about relationships, it could have been about work. And then from there, I think we found very early on that it was important to use the platform, the very small platform that we had, to share the experiences and journeys of other people. And I think you probably found this in only the few episodes that you've done so far, is that you really do learn. If you're open to learning, I think every single person has got something to tell you, to teach you. If you're open to learning, there's always something to be able to take away. And I think I found that that was a kind of unexpected bonus when we started interviewing other people. And I felt really privileged to be part of those conversations where people were quite often bearing their soul. There was people that were kind of in the mental health sphere that were important to us at the time, and a few people that were in bands, a couple of influencers, other mental health advocates and things like that. But we started off just speaking to friends. And I think we had kind of we wanted to be as wide ranging and inclusive as possible. So I think we had a kind of hit list of certain topics we wanted to cover. So we wanted to speak to somebody who'd had experience with OCD. One of my close friends had, to ensure that we were kind of, we'd covered all gamuts of the mental health kind of spectrum. As I went down the road of my own personal growth journey, the podcast evolved alongside that into more personal growth. So the stories wouldn't be essentially exclusive to mental health. Did interviews with, illustrators about creativity and things that generally interest me outside of mental health. So I feel like as I was getting on top of my own mental health, my interests broadened then, the more and more people I spoke to.
What do you listen to when you're running? And I asked this somewhat loaded, right? Because we've asked most people on our podcast about this. And some people just like listening to nature. They don't want to have any music. But I'm guessing that's not the case with you. So what kind of BPM style are you rocking out to when you're going for a run?
Do you know what? That's a really good question. I think that... have you heard of the band Cavell Attack? They're yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So they've got, I think, anything. A lot of the stuff that I like is prog metal, which isn't suitable for running because there's different time signatures and BPM changes, and you're just all over the place. So I can't run to that. So it has to be something that's driven. Has to be something that's normally around 160 BPM. I'm not a fast runner. So Cavell Attack is, for those that don't know, I think they call themselves black and rock and roll, and it's kind of a mix between Norwegian black metal and rock and roll.
You've repurposed that kind of following that you built up with Heavy Mental Podcasts, and you've rebranded as Heavy Mental Runner, which I think is really interesting. And actually, let's delve into that. Why did that happen, and what response have you had?
Yeah, so when the podcast ended back in 22, I actually spent some time completely off social media, and deactivated my personal accounts and living in the quote unquote real world for a few years.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite nice. It was really refreshing to be, because I've always had this kind of love-hate relationship with social media. As chance would have it, a year ago to today, my one of my best mates, Mark Chesterfield, was diagnosed with stage 4 incurable, inoperable esophageal cancer, which had spread to his liver. And after hearing that news, it's one of those situations where, it's incredibly heavy news to have. And you always think,
sure,
well, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen to me. It's not going to happen to my friends. It happens to other people or older people. But this is, particularly close to home. Me and Mark have been really, really good mates for, years and years and years. And yeah, after that, I found myself initially feeling quite helpless in that I actively wanted to do something to help him. But the only thing I really could do was listen and be there for him. And then after that kind of passed, I was speaking to him back and forth. And then I floated the idea of, I want to do something for charity. I want to do something for a cancer charity specifically, and wanted to understand what charity aligned with him and he had benefited from the most during his diagnosis and journey. And it was quite an easy one for him. It was Maggie, Swansea, the cancer centre and the charity. They'd helped him so many times when he was feeling, so low through chemotherapy. They're also there to support friends and family of sufferers as well, because obviously cancer doesn't, although it physically affects the one person who goes through the brunt of the physical effects of cancer, there's also ripple, as you know, like ripples outwards and affects everyone close to that person. So I knew I wanted to do something. and I saw that there was...
And you also had this kind of presence already, you know, with several thousand people who you could, you know, speak to, I suppose. So you have your friend who's unfortunately very unwell. You wanted to do something, and you had this kind of platform, and you know that something came about from that a bit, didn't it?
Yeah, I think the following, the small following that we had was dormant on that account. So I was like, I'm going to repurpose the account and use that following, because I'm still talking about, I still intend to talk about mental health and running on the account. I'm still, like I said, put on the account, I'm still heavy, I'm still mental. So the moniker still applies. So I decided that I was going to repurpose the account to basically use solely for trying to get the word out with my fundraising. So we saw, a friend, Tim, and I saw that Maggie's had charity spaces for the London Marathon next year. So we decided to apply. So we spent some time on an application. And then a few days later, we got a call from someone at Maggie saying, "Oh, we've received your application. I want to bolster it as much as possible to give you the best possible chance, because it's not my decision, it's head office's decision." So we went through, chatted. Can you tell us about Mark? So we padded out our application, and then a few days later, we were successful with our London Marathon applications, which I am so stoked about. I never done London before. I've always wanted to do it. I know it's
exciting.
Thank you.
But it's not just London Marathon. I think that's the twist here. So you've got this horrible situation with a friend who's so unwell. You want to do something positive. You've got into the marathon, but there's this Blink 182 link, which sounds a bit random, doesn't it? But you've taken it further than just the marathon, haven't you?
Yeah. So Mark, aka Chesty, as we call him, he is a Blink 182 mega fan. I mean, whenever I hear any Blink song, whenever I see anyone from Blink, even sort of secondary references, someone mentions the Kardashians and Travis Barker's with one of the Kardashians, you know, that association, anything in the Blink sphere, I think of Mark straight away. So yeah. Mark and Blink have always been kind of inseparable. And yeah, classic ADHD fashion, I was already doing the London Marathon, already committed to fundraising. And then I was like, I want to do something more and sooner than the London Marathon to focus on, something bigger, something that's going to be able to spread the word more about the amazing work that Maggie's do, and try and garner some extra funds. So I was in the shower one day, and I was thinking, you know, as these shower thoughts come up, I was listening to a Blink song. I often listen to, when I'm doing a cold shower, I listen to some upbeat song to like get my head in the zone. I was listening to a Blink song because Mark made me a playlist of his favorite Blink songs. And I was like, 182. How 182 miles? How many marathons is that? So then I worked it out, and I was like, it's almost exactly 7 marathons. So I thought, I'm going to do... yeah, the ADHD part of me was like, say you're going to do 7 marathons in 7 days. Just tell the internet so you then can't go back on it. Yeah. And then quickly, I committed to it. And yeah, that kind of got everything going from there. And I think I knew I wanted to do something big for Mark. I want to do something to shine a light on Maggie's and to honor Mark, to be honest, because he's been such a good friend to me through the years. And we've been able to bond closer because he's involved in the planning of the 182 in November. And he's been involved in the fundraising today in terms of coming up with ideas. We've got a few ideas where we're hoping to, well, we've had some confirmed illustrators and designers who've confirmed that they will collab with us to produce T-shirts in which 100% of the proceeds will go to charity, to go to the fund. So we're hoping to put on a show, a gig. the fundraising page that we have is essentially a one-stop shop for everything that me and Tim are going to be doing between now and the London Marathon next year.
Yeah, it's growing from the London Marathon to 7 marathons in 7 days in November to other things around it, gigs and things, which is great. It's a positive thing that you can be doing.
In terms of preparation, though, for seven marathons, what will you be listening to music as you go through that? Will you be listening to your own body's clock, or how do you pace yourself? I'm getting into the technicalities a bit here, just because I'm completely interested from a selfish perspective.
Yeah, of course. I think I'm not a kind of technical person as such. I like to keep things as simple as possible, because my mind is a bin fire most of the time. So for me, I've tried to figure out what my natural pace is, my easy run pace, which is about 10:30 to 11-minute miles. And then after speaking briefly with someone who knows a little bit more about running than me, they've said to basically extend that. So say if my natural pace is 10:30, 11, I've been trying the Jeffin method. I don't know if you've heard that. It's basically
so running,
walk. Yeah. So especially now after the injury, that's how I intend to get the miles in without re-injuring myself, because I've already accepted that I'm not going to be able to get peak volume in. I think something I was thinking of earlier with Mark, with Chesty, he's going through such a brutal round after he's had 18 rounds of chemotherapy. He hasn't got a choice. So I'm like, this is something I'm doing just in order to raise funds for charity. So, what excuse do I have? I'm doing this no matter what. If I've got to walk every marathon, I'm going to walk every marathon.
And we use this this mantra, running is release. I kind of wanted to get your take on what does that mean to you in terms of what does it mean to you in your everyday, in terms of your management of mental health or anything else, really?
Yeah, I love the mantra. It's definitely something that I can directly relate to myself. I think the primary reason that I've used running, or it's been a constant throughout my adult life, is the proper maintenance of my mental health. I feel like I saw a meme yesterday, or a video on Instagram, of a guy saying ADHD and alcohol, and there was loads of voices, classic ADHD, 100 TVs on at the same time, and then they take a sip of alcohol, more sips of alcohol, and it all just quietens down. That is something I used to get from alcohol. I no longer drink, but I now get from running. An addict in so much as I constantly have to have something that I'm addicted to, and it just happens to be running. It's always been training to some degree or another, but a lot of the people that I know that have got into endurance sports, whether, you go down, it tends to be, there's that meme where you get to 40 and you either go down the ultra route or you go down the Ironman route, and or you carry on drinking and partying and seeing where that leads. I was able to numb myself by using the likes of alcohol, overeating, things like that, to just take the edge off. And I feel like with running, that is a healthy outlet for being able to do that. Like, it does way better than alcohol I ever used to. But it's the transition between drinking and not drinking, obviously, that it takes some time to get used to. But yeah, I absolutely love it now.
Just on that point, I think this, you make that really interesting point about addictive personalities, and replacing a bad addiction with a more positive addiction. Not that any addiction is necessarily good, but do you know what I mean? A slightly healthier one. Just want to hit on or kind of deviate a bit on that, but it's tangential. And the point is that drinking is social generally. Drinking on your own obviously is not great, but a lot of drinking has a very nice social element to it, whereas running quite often is solo. Where's your head in terms of, do you like to run solo? Do you like to run with groups? You've mentioned already in these marathons, you're always going to be running with at least one person, hopefully. But where do you get that? Coming back to our mantra, running is release. Where do you get the release from? Is it the solo running? Is it the social running? Is it a bit of both? What's your take on that?
Quite honestly, I think it's a bit of both. I get something different from both experiences. I think day to day, I tend to run on my own just out of convenience because I have. I tend to run very early in the morning at unsociable hours. I'm an early bird. But when I've had the opportunity to run with someone else, which is hard when all of your mates have got young kids, it's hard to carve out, 3 hours, 4 hours to go up the mountains trail running. But I think in the same way that when you go out drinking, you have that camaraderie and people let their barriers down and you become fast friends. I think exactly the same thing can happen if you go on a long run with someone and, having a natural interest in people. I think I get the same thing from it. If I had more time, I'd definitely like to do more of that.
You said it's almost a rebellious act to be a normal runner now. And I know just from your Insta profile and talking to you, you kind of switched on to the kind of more countercultural kind of side of things. Do you think there is a kind of more I don't know what to call it, a more alternative side to the running community?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably a shift in how people use social media in its entirety, and it's sort of trickled down into different kind of subcultures, but running being one of them. Is that people are generally sick of the highly polished, perfect, Instagrammable stuff of the last few years. And I think people more than anything, which is why podcasts have taken off, is that they want authenticity. And I think it's difficult to be inauthentic when you're speaking in long form, because you can't fake it when you're having a long form conversation. You can manipulate or control what content you put up if it's in short form or if it's on your own profile. But I think the beauty of podcasting is that people do crave that in a world that is so full of noise. And I think people crave that authenticity. And but I pride myself on being a very average, below average runner. And I know I'm not ever going to be fast, and that's fine. I'm not in it for that. And I've always been the type of person that I like to take the piss out of myself. I do have a sense of humor. There's a lot to laugh at. It's personally helped me a lot to laugh at, it's particularly with some of the struggles I've had with anxiety, looking back on some of the situations, some of the thoughts I had. For me, reframing traumatic events in a comedic light or something that feels funny to me has been really helpful for me.
That therapeutic benefit is often to dial the noise down, have clarity of thought, and get sense and perspective. And I think that's valid to everybody. But I would imagine, particularly for somebody who has a condition such as, I'm sure I'm using that word wrong, condition, but it lives with ADHD, it must be more so.
Obviously, I can only speak to my experience with ADHD, but I think it's been really important for me to find a positive outlet. I personally wanted to go down the route of medication. Didn't feel like the right route personally for me. So I wanted to try and find a way in which I could manage it. And I think exercise was an obvious one. There's a number of other, I feel like I am managing ADHD, but at the same time, it is a superpower for me. If I know it's like Cyclops in X-Men where he's got his visor and it stops his eyes from just going. I feel like the things I have to do, the exercise, going to bed on time, having like sleep hygiene and food as well, and staying away from vapes and whatever else. If I do all of that good stuff, I can have this like laser beam hyper focus in which I can just get loads of stuff done in a very short period of time. So I can, although I struggle with things that other people, neurotypical people, may not struggle with at all, I can also do things that neurotypical people aren't able to do. So there's like a trade-off there. A few of my friends suspected on the spectrum, ADHD themselves. All those who have struggled with mental health and addiction, I feel like I'm naturally drawn to those people because, I don't know, I think coming from the metal scene, people are generally more open and accepting.
I want to maybe round it back to your upcoming challenge. When is it? November when?
November the 10th. You'll have to excuse me 1 second. I can see that my battery's about to run out.
That's
because I haven't plugged my laptop in. There we go, and it's in. Yeah, sorry, you asked about when it's kicking off.
Yeah, so when it's kicking off,
Chicago, haven't we? First, isn't Tim
Yeah.
Chicago October?
Tim is doing Chicago in October, and then I'm not,
which isn't long away.
No,
which isn't long away. Tim is very much the type of person that will not commit to a full training regimen, then get a brief niggle or injury prior to the race, and then use that as an excuse as to why he didn't get a PB.
I like Tim's style. I think he's got it right.
There's something to be taken away there from Tim's approach, definitely. And then November, we've got the 182 on November 10th, the week of November 10th, starting on a Monday. I'm hoping that the weather holds. You never know in November what you're really going to get. You know it's going to be probably drizzly and hopefully around 10 degrees, somewhere around there, but it could be cold. So who knows what conditions I'll be running in. I'll be running on, I've chosen the route. I've kept it really simple, and in the hope that the maximum amount of people that kind of want to be involved can get involved. So I'll be starting at Swansea Marina at a large car park, and basically running out. I don't know if you know Swansea at all, but I'll be running from the marina out to Mumbles Pier along the front and back. And that's about a half marathon I can make up. And then I'll be going out and back, and then every day. So it'll be out and backs every day. Until Strava says that I've clocked up the mileage, and then I'll call it a day and focus on getting as many calories in as possible and recovery.
Yeah. So how? Here's a question. Blink 182. How do we get this in front of them? That would be nice. Wouldn't it? We need a soundbite. We need you saying something for 10 seconds, and then we're gonna pump it on social media, and lo and behold, they'll see it and turn up. That's the idea. Isn't it?
I mean, that would be absolutely phenomenal. It's not well. Travis Barker is a runner himself, so I know he does. Yeah. He does when he's touring in the US. He does run tours, and I have a friend who lives in Chicago who's going to go to, I think, the Vegas one or the Chicago one. Sometimes there's an opportunity to meet Travis, or at least his team. So I'm hoping that he can get it in front of him, and you know, who knows, or get it in front of his team, or even a share on social media or something like that. My wife actually made a cake for Mark a few years ago, Blink 182, surprise, surprise, themed cake. And Tom DeLong from the band actually commented on the post. So there is hope that, you know, as big as they are, and as unlikely as it is they are going to see stuff, you just never know. And that's the beauty of it, I suppose, social media.
Well, it's a bit of serendipity here. Blink 182 are headlining in Chicago. I'm actually out to Chicago next week. So unfortunately, I'm coming back before this festival kicks off, which is on September the 19th. But Blink 182 are headlining. And check the name of the festival out. It's called Riot Fest. So you're talking to Run Riot guys here. There's some karma happening there.
Going on there. I spoke to a guy that did roughly around the same amount of miles earlier this year. He ran from London to Bristol. I saw it in the BBC online, and I was like, I'm going to get in touch with him and see if he's got any pointers for me.
Simon Pilkington, I believe. Is
that
correct?
Was exactly it. Yeah. That I spoke to him on LinkedIn. And very nice guy, offered to have a conversation with me about the ins and outs. And he did that massive run it was great. It was great to catch up with him to understand if there's anything that I might have overlooked, like asking him questions like what did you do after you finished running that day? Like, was it straight in an ice bath? Was it straight, was it just straight to eat as much as you possibly could until the next day? How did you sleep? What did recovery look like? They were able to get physio. They were people who'd volunteered their time, and they had a crew, one or two person crew, so they didn't have to think about like pit stops and stuff. So I'm hoping to be able to carry everything on my person in my Salomon running vest that I need. I think the main thing is going to be eating beforehand. I know what I'm going to be doing fuel wise during the race. Don't call it a race. It's not a race. Run.
It's a race with yourself.
Run. Yeah, it's a race in that. Yeah, I just want to get to the finish line any which way.
Sure.
For Mark, for Maggie's, and yeah, that's my intention for November, and then obviously London next year.
Yeah, and we'll be cheering you along for the London one. And Ollie, I'm still looking out for some places for us for a charity spot for TCS London. And
interesting.
If we get it, we got to go. Maybe we'll have to listen to Rhys's music when he's banging along with his speaker on his back. Yeah. Okay, so we've kind of come to a natural end there, which is you obviously talking about your itinerary and your schedule. But as is our way, Ollie, we have a quick fire round of questions. I'm going to ask you a series of questions as quick as you can. Give us your answer. So the first one, which divides both me and Ollie, is: do you like to run in the sun or do you like to run in the rain?
Absolutely the sun, because I don't like chafed nips.
What? That's enough, please. So I hit upon this a little bit earlier. Running with people or by yourself?
I would say there's a place for both, but I would class myself more probably as a solo runner, just out of convenience, early morning.
Yeah. And sort of segueing from that, road or trail?
Road, because I'm clumsy, and trail for the beauty of nature. But yeah, I have to watch my foot in, and I feel like I'm not a natural trail runner, although. Yeah, road.
Okay, and to that, avoiding injury, stretching or no stretching?
Absolutely stretch, and I have to stretch. Otherwise...
Okay, and of course you live where there are loads of hills. So this answer I know the answer to: hill sprints or slow and steady?
Slow and steady. I avoid the hills.
Oh right, yeah. Even though you live within the beacons, yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Last question then: kilometers or miles?
Miles, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
never worked in kilometers.
Never. It's like, it would be like an alien language for me to try, and I've no idea what's slow, what's fast. Yeah, I should have picked 182 kilometers instead of 182 miles. It would have been an easier week.
I mean, right? You stole my joke, Rhys, but brilliant. On that,
the magic of editing.
Wonderful. Great talking to you, Rhys. A fabulous story as well. And we wish you and Tim all the best in the upcoming, literally, marathons that you've taken on yourself, not just one, but 7 in 7 days, and it all culminating in the TCS London next year. So thank you so much for being our guest, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, both. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I love the brand. I love what you're trying to do, the content you're putting out there, and look forward to see what happens later this year.